This is the study guide that we used for Chapter 4. I know it says Test A at the top, but we used it as the study guide. So as we work through this, keep in mind your test will be very similar to this. So if you have any questions on anything that is in this video, please come see me before you take your test. So for 1 and 2, it says simply complete the table, plot the two solution points on the graph, and then find a different solution point that's on the line. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to fill in the table. So what they've given us is an XY table, okay? And if you remember, I told you on your XY tables, you can pick whatever number you want for X. I would always pick 0 because it's the easiest thing to deal with. So we'll start there. And then for this one, another number I will pick is 2. And then you are simply just going to plug each of these numbers into your equation that they give you down here. So your equation is y equals 1/2 times x. So if I plug these in, 1/2 times 0 is 0. And 1/2 times 2, well, half of 2 is 1. And this gives me the 2 points that I'm going to plot on my graph. So the first thing I'm going to plot is the point 0, 0, right at the origin. And then the point 2, 1. I'll go over 2 and up 1. And then connect those and try to make your line as straight as possible. Now the last thing it said to do was to pick a different point that is on that line. So if you look, well, I noticed to get from one point here to the other, I rise 1 and I run 2, because that was my slope. So if I rise 1 and run another 2, I end up right here, and that point would be 4, 2. Now we're going to graph or fill in the table for number 2, and when we graph that, we'll put it on the same graph here. So again, you can pick whatever numbers you want for x. I will do 0. This time I'll do 1. And then plug them into your equation. Y equals x plus 3. Well, 0 plus 3 is 3. And 1 plus 3 is 4. So when I graph these, the point 0, 3, I'll go over 0 and up 3. And then the other point is 1, 4. Over 1, up 4. And then connect those. And again, we have to pick another point that falls on that line. So I noticed that my slope of the line is 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So if I do that again, go up 1 over 1, I end up right here. And that point is the point 25. Okay, so we filled in an XY table, plotted those points, and then found another point that fell on that same line. Now moving on to numbers 3 and 4. The directions just simply say to solve for y. So on number 3, draw my line through here to separate each side of the equation. If I want the y by itself, first thing you have to get rid of is this x. And since it's a positive x, we need to subtract x on both sides. So we end up with 4y equals negative x minus 12. And then I'm going to divide everything by 4. Now, whenever I do that, if you notice, right in front of the x, there's no number. Technically, it would be a 1, and then there's a negative sign there, so it'd be a negative 1. So I've created a fraction here, negative 1 over 4. So negative 1/4 x. And then a negative 12 divided by positive 4 would be a negative 3. So I'm going to write minus 3. And we have it solved for y. On number 4, same process. I want the y by itself. So first thing I need to get rid of is this 2x. So since it's positive 2x, I'm going to subtract 2x on each side. You're left with a negative 3y equals negative 2x plus 3. And then my next step is to divide everything by a negative 3. So what we have created here is another fraction, negative 2 over negative 3. Those two negatives will make a positive, and it becomes just 2/3 x. And then a lot of you look at this and you automatically want to think 0, but keep in mind it's division. Positive 3 divided by negative 3 is going to give you negative 1. Any number divided by itself is 1, and then it's negative since 1 was positive and 1 was negative. Okay? Moving on, number 5. Directions simply say to find the slope of the line. So if you remember, we use m to represent the slope. And to find the slope of a graph, we use rise over run. So you can start at either one of these points that you want. If I start down here, I'm simply going to count how many I rise and how many I run to get to the other point over here. So I'm going to rise 1, 2, 3, and you run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Since I went up 3, that's a positive 3, and since I went to the right 6, that's a positive 6. And then you can simplify that down to 1/2. All right, moving on. Down to the bottom, for 6, 7, and 8, it says find the slope and the y-intercept of these equations. So first thing I want you to make note of is anytime you have an equation and they are asking you for the slope and the y-intercept, you have to solve the equation for y first. You want it in slope-intercept form, which remember looks like this, y equals mx plus b. Okay? But I first have to make sure it's solved for y. So if you look at number 6, I notice it's already solved for y. So your slope, remember, is the number that's directly in front of your x. So in this case, it's 3. And your y-intercept is that other number that's tagging along with it. Now keep in mind, since this says minus 6, that y-intercept is going to be negative 6. Okay, on number 7, it's not solved for y. So we need to do that first to get that y by itself. Well, the only thing I need to do is get rid of this plus 5. So I'm going to subtract 5 on each side. And we have y equals negative 3/4 x minus 5. So now I can pick out my slope and my y-intercept. The slope, remember, is the number right in front of the x. So that's going to be negative 3/4. Your y-intercept is that other number tagging on over here. So it's going to be a negative 5. Okay, and then on number 8, I notice it's already solved for y. So my slope will be 7/9. That's right in front of the x. My y-intercept will be a negative 3 1/3. So make sure, if you're picking out the slope and the y-intercept, you have to have the equation solved for y first. It has to be in this form right here. M will be your slope, B will be your y-intercept. Then over on the back side of the paper, number 9 says the position y in meters of a submarine after x minutes is shown with the equation y equals negative 8x minus 12. Interpret the y-intercept and the slope. So we've talked about this word interpret a lot. So keep in mind, when I say interpret, I mean tell me what it means. What does the slope mean? What does the y-intercept mean within the context of this problem in reference to the submarine in this instance? Okay, so I notice my equation is already solved for y. So first thing I'm going to do is pick out my slope. Your slope is what's in front of the x, so that would be -8. And now I need to say what it means. Well, we're dealing with a submarine, and you guys know with a submarine, it's a boat that goes down under the water. So the fact that this is a negative number is telling me that that submarine is going down. Okay, it's getting deeper and deeper in the water. Now, your slope, and I want you to write this up above here. Your slope is another word for speed, or how much for 1. Okay, how far is it going in 1 minute? How much are you being charged for 1 hour? How fast is the car going in 1 hour? Or how far is it going in 1 hour? Okay, so I'm going to use the two units that they give me, meters and minutes. So I know since this is negative, it goes down 8 meters. And since it's how much for 1, it goes down 8 meters every minute. That was the other unit they gave me. Okay. Then I have to interpret the y-intercept. So your y-intercept is this other number tagging on over here. So that would be -12. Okay. And up here, we're going to add in a little note about the y-intercept. Okay. Your y-intercept is basically your starting point. Okay. Because if you think about it, if I were to graph this equation, my y-intercept is -12. What that means is it crosses the y-axis at -12. So let's say -12 is way down here. Okay. The y represented meters, so this is the depth. Okay. It's 12 meters below the water. Your x represented the time. So if you notice, when my point is right here, I am at 0 minutes. Okay, so you're basically starting at whatever your y-intercept is. Okay, so another thing you can think of with the y-intercept is like what you get or what you pay just for the pizza with no extra toppings. We've talked about that before. How much you pay just to have service for the phone that you have. So like if you pay a certain amount per text or a certain amount per minute, which is unheard of anymore, but it's that initial cost that you pay. We've also talked about the price to get into the fair. Okay, it's what you pay just to get in, and then the rides are extra after that. So if we're talking about the submarine, this is where he started. Okay, so he started 12 meters, and since it was a -12, that means it was below the surface. Okay, so he started at 0 minutes, he was 12 meters below the surface. That's where they started keeping track of everything. All right, then on our last two, we just simply need to graph the equation that they give us. So there were two different ways that we talked about that you could graph this. Okay, one was to, and I'll write this over here to the side, but one was to make an XY table. And the second way was to solve the equation for y.